Hey, he's on. And we're on, and now, everyone, it is time to begin the new episode of Talk Anything. Hello, everybody. Oh, how's that for an intro?
Besides the fact that I was laughing the whole time, it was pretty great.
You were laughing, I didn't hear it. More
Ha, ha,
laughter. No, everyone. Yeah, welcome. So,
Hello.
and yeah, today there's me, Mr. John. And you two can introduce yourselves. I'm whatever.
I'm Cassie. Woohoo. Go co-hosting.
I'm Tyler, and I'm here for the ride.
Woohoo! And anyways, today we're having a discussion. Well, you know what, Tyler? Since this is your idea, how about you introduce the discussion topic?
All right. Well, I just moved from an apartment into a house, and
Congratulations.
thought, here's an interesting topic that other people might relate to because people move a lot, which is your neighbors, what you do with them, how to interact like humans.
What is this idea called humans? We always just run away from our neighbors, don't we? Come on.
Exactly.
I mean, you might not be entirely wrong about that. So Tyler, moving from a house to or other way around, an apartment to a house. And the fact that this topic is on your mind, what's going on with neighbors?
Well, I guess I've transitioned from having a neighbor above me and across the hall from me, and one that I knew really well in a different different door down, and now I've got neighbors by yards and across streets and stuff. So I don't know. There's a bunch of jibber jabber to talk about with that, I guess.
I feel like this topic could be like immensely huge to like, or it could be like really like focused in. So this will be fun.
Yeah.
I feel like.
I think.
Oh, go ahead.
At least within like my story, like I'm a fairly introverted person. I would not know any of my neighbors at my apartment that I was at. If I didn't have a dog that I had to walk every day, I would have basically not talked to anyone. So
yeah, I've heard that dogs are really good ways to meet people. So
yeah,
especially for introverts like us.
exactly.
Well,
So
I feel like. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and that's probably something that's made me more introductory to my neighbors currently too, just because they've got a dog and want to make sure that mine is at least getting along well enough with them. And
Well, and for me, I'm kind of on a little in-kept street. I have one neighbor I have waved to a few times in the 4 or 5 years I've lived here. And then another neighbor who is very, very, very talkative. So it's the type of neighbor where we peek out the window of like, is she out there? Otherwise, we're taking the car that is not close to the road so she can't see us. Oh, yeah. There's more to say there, but I guess, Cassie, what's your neighbor situation?
Okay, so we recently moved from a rental house to a house. So and we have a fairly big one, which is nice because then it's like I kind of feel like we have a lot of space, like even just in the house. So that's nice. But we have neighbors. So we have a little kind of weird situation in our backyard. Probably about 6 to 8 neighbors are all in, like, can see it, and we're all interfacing with those because ours is like a rectangle. I mean, it's like a triangle, and it takes up all the space from the like cul-de-sacs and stuff. So we have a pretty big yard. It's also just interesting though because I have had one neighbor just when we moved in, like peek over and be like, "Okay, there's neighbors," and then it just goes from there. I've also had this little one of my far neighbors, like they have a little kid who is super sweet and awesome, and she jumped up on the fence one time and would talk to us for about 30 minutes. So she is super cute, but I haven't seen her since. But we just kind of, so that besides backyard, we just have neighbors just down the street, and so it's typical street.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm the only one actually here among the three of us who has a long-term neighbor right now. Because both of you are pretty new in your homes.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I will tell kind of the story about how I interact with my neighbor.
Do
It
it.
was just when we moved here, this kind of older lady, not old but older, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, she loved us right off the bat. Very thrilled to chat with us. And we were like open. It's like, great, we have a neighbor who's friendly and nice and wants to talk with us. But every time we have an interaction with her, it is 2+ hours.
Oh, jeez.
It's like we can say multiple times, "Hey, we gotta go." Hey, well, it was nice talking to you. We'll talk to you later. And every time it's like, "Oh, let me tell you one more thing, 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 one more thing until infinity." And it becomes one of those awkward situations where it's like, do we just walk away as she's talking and say, "I got to get to work," or "We're on the way to the store," or "We need a life," that isn't just standing and talking to our neighbor outside for 2+ hours. And 2 hours, that's when we've gotten to the point where we have to cut it off, because after that point, it just would keep going. And so it's one of those situations where I'd be fine with chatting with her, talking with her, being a friendly neighbor to her, but as it stands, we kind of end up avoiding her because we can never have a conversation that's just one conversation that just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Those boundaries are hard to keep sometimes, especially when people feel lonely and they really want to keep talking.
Yeah, and I think that's a large part of it, is that she does feel lonely. I mean, she's married. He lives there with her, but the overall, I don't think. I think she craves more interaction with more people.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Which is a very interesting dynamic of, like, which I feel like we could get into too, of just an introvert living next to an extrovert. Like, I feel like there's so many stories there, and like just different, boundary like discussions and things like that.
oh my goodness, if this was a call-in show, oh, that would be
Oh,
awesome.
that could be interesting.
Yeah, we could get some very interesting stories with that one.
Probably. Oh, I kind of relate with you on that situation though. With one of my last, at the apartment, we've got probably a longtime friend, honestly, of a neighbor. She has been really nice to us, and since we've been moving, I think that's been a little bit of a letdown for her. But we're still fairly close, so she came by and visited, and my roommate and I, we were just gonna go to the grocery store fairly soon. and she stuck around and talked for like, I think it was like 2 hours, or maybe slightly less. But by the time we were going to go to the grocery store, it turned out that they were closed, so we had to run over to the Walmart that we. Out of all the Walmarts in the world, like it's gotta be the worst Walmart that exists. And yeah, there was a constant beeping noise at the checkout with a line of like 20 people long. Anyway, but it was like, oh, love talking to her, but that was unfortunate.
It was a lot.
It's like I could have gone to my local grocery store. Oh, it was still good to talk to her though, but.
And you brought up earlier, like in preparation for this, that there's kind of been a change over the years of what neighbors are, what they mean.
Yeah.
Especially just with like COVID, you know. Like I don't know
Oh, for
about the
sure.
rest of you guys, but I feel like I find myself now kind of avoiding people. And like if I'm walking down the street, like sometimes I'll turn around the other way and go the other way if I find somebody walking towards me. But that's
Well, and
more
it's a
my introverted self showing itself. So
well, see, it's nice though because now you have biological permission to do so instead of
right,
just
I get to be
just
called
trying
a
to avoid
hero for it.
interaction.
COVID, the hero of the introvert. Oh,
No. No.
Yeah, but I don't know. I kind of feel like that there's just a progressive set of reasons where becoming familiar with your neighbors is a little bit more complex than maybe it used to be, and and that might just be from growing up in a religious neighborhood where like everybody knew each other through church.
Mhm.
Um, but otherwise, I mean, I think like I remember growing up and watching um, Tim Allen's like Tool Time, and you got the guy that sticks his head partway across the fence and always chatting with the neighbor and stuff. It's like that's just like the normal. You're best friends with your next door neighbor.
or at least frenemies if
Yeah, or frenemies. Yeah, but I think now you've got. I don't know if it's like that. You've got the internet that everyone can get information easily out that way, and you've got just higher political tension and I don't know. I think perhaps that it may be easier to not know your neighbors too much that you get into being able to disagree with them. Instead, you just politely know that they're there and that you're there for them if they need help. Otherwise, maybe it's easier to not know people too much.
I mean, in some ways, I feel like, and just adding to your list of reasons, I feel like nowadays, you know, with the just the internet and things being more, you know, visual. I mean, more. Oh, what's the word
digital.
I'm looking for? Yeah, more digital and things being able to go around so fast. I feel like just with, you know, the the fear of just, you know, people watch the news and then they get like, okay, well, this person who, you know, otherwise we may not have, you know, ever heard of because it was in a newspaper and maybe you didn't read the newspaper or whatever, but you know, this person attacked this other person, and so then it's kind of, you know, the more stories that you hear like that are more centralized, you know, sensationalized because they are things that they can sell. I feel like then
Yeah,
that decreases people's even want to or just some people's like it decreases their want of talking to people, and so that gets that's kind of a change too.
I you hadn't thought of that one, and um, maybe this is just my own bias, but I feel like that issue was actually kind of worse when I was younger. And maybe that's just the difference in how my family has changed and the way we look at things, but I feel like when I was younger it was this constant fear of stranger danger. Um but I feel like the internet has made it so that well, maybe that stranger danger still exists, but the stranger danger goes away a lot online.
Hmm.
You use some fake name, avatar or whatever, and suddenly you can talk to people and be open to them, and I almost feel like that seems like it has replaced neighbors in a lot of ways.
Sure. I mean, then you don't have
Yeah.
to show your face. I mean, then you get to be able to, kind of hide behind the anonymity of a fake name or a fake picture, or and maybe people feel more comfortable being authentic that way, which I think is something that I don't know if I feel like I crave, and I feel like that's kind of a common need, is to be able to just be authentic that way.
Well, and
Yeah.
neighbors might have been that safe spot before, where it's like
Mhm.
anyone else on the street, you don't, or out and about, you don't know if they are a stranger danger. You don't know if they're someone who could be bad, but your neighbors, you see them all the time. They're there, they're
Mhm.
next door. If they are someone terrible, you would either know it or you're just used to them enough that you're not worried about them being terrible. So they kind of became the safe bubble, perhaps. Whereas nowadays, you can pick a different safety bubble.
Yeah.
Mm.
Question is that a good or a bad thing? Because I don't know that that's
Right?
clear whether it is.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my goodness. I just feel like, this just depends on who you talk to, and, whether they're introverted, extroverted, or things like that. Like,
Oh yeah. I bet tons of people out there are still like, "What are you guys talking about? You're insane." Well, tons of people who would say that if they heard us, but they won't hear us because you know, tiny little podcast. Um, but there's probably tons of people out there who would say, "What are you guys talking about?" I've got a close
mhm.
relationship with my neighbor. I love
Mhm.
my neighbors. If I didn't have neighbors, I'd be, so on and so forth.
Lost. Yeah.
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 Which I feel like makes this such an interesting conversation, because, it's I especially enjoy conversations where people have different viewpoints on it. And I think it's interesting. I know for me, like, and this may be getting on and off on a tangent, but I know for me, at least, just being at, college, I kind of would look around and I'd be like, wait a second, why aren't more people talking to me? Like, or talking to each other? Like, what's happening? And, kind of craving that social interaction, and so going for it more. Um, and I feel like, nowadays it's kind of changed in the way of not seeking that as much.
Yeah.
Interesting experience I had with college was that um, I went to my undergrad at BYU and I was told in advance, oh yeah, everyone's really friendly and talkative there, and they're um,
Mhm.
everyone's
Mhm.
friendly to everyone. So I go there and my naive self said, "Oh, that's the culture, so I'm gonna do that culture." So I'd see random people, passing by people on the sidewalk and be like, "Hey, how's it going?" And I get these stares of like, "What a weird
Mhm.
person are you? What are you doing? Why are you talking to me?" I'm like, but this is supposed to be. Oh, it's not that. Oh, okay. um,
Right? Like, and it's funny, like, because I also went to BYU, you, and that's kind of where we met. But like, I feel like, um, at least in like high school, like my dad was like, okay, you gotta be super like, go say hi to people, go make friends. And I was like, okay. So our high school had this little like, one building and then another building, but you had to like walk up a pathway to get there. And so first day I was like, okay, like I'll go do that. Like it's scary, but I can do this. And then I walk up to this person and I'm like, hey, how's it going? And she literally like runs away. I don't think I ever like had that at BYU, but I will never forget that.
Oh man. See, me being the introvert that I am, the weirdly, I don't know what the word for it is, the weirdly unbalanced introvert that I am. But, anyways, where was it going? Good thing is I can cut out audio if I want. Yay! I can say
Yeah.
poop, poop, poop. I can cut this audio out. Yeah.
Oh man.
Actually, maybe I should leave that in. We will see how generous of a mood I feel when I'm editing this. But no, what I was gonna say is in college I was able to get a single dorm without any roommates, and I was
Oh yeah.
terrified of the idea of roommates. I did not want to have roommates.
Oh man,
And
roommates.
yeah. Which are a form of neighbor, right?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if I think if you get enough of them, then it's not too bad. I actually lived in a warehouse with 10 people.
Oh, I remember
So
that warehouse that you
That
were
sounds
in.
interesting.
yeah. No, it was I don't know, kind of chaotic. So you have to kind of just like count on that, but afterwards, not a whole lot of human dynamics to deal with. There was a half pipe and main area, and we had like 3 different local bands playing there at one point. It's kind of fun.
That sounds really
I'll
cool.
probably never do it again, but
What is I'm very curious to hear the story behind this because like
oh
how
yeah,
does one sign up to even be in said warehouse? And how
oh
does
no, it
one
was
sleep in said warehouse? Is it kind of like one of those travel places that you like get a cot or what is this?
oh it was legitimate on the loosest means possible.
Mm.
Yeah.
We paid for the place. We were not technically supposed to sleep in that place. So,
Huh,
but legally, we were able to be there at any time of the day or night,
right.
not have beds there. So, yeah. I'm not
So
gonna
wait.
say where that is, so we'll just say that's allegedly.
Allegedly, you lived in a warehouse and you just came up with this whole half pipe
I
idea.
mean,
And
for all I know, that was not actually zoned as a business district. I mean, I never looked at the zoning, so
I mean, yeah, that's
I
fair. I
paid
mean,
rent to someone else.
you were just paying rent to a friend, so that friend, right, shouldn't be charging rent for a uh, unless it was a legal residence, right? So,
Yeah, no,
um,
it was
and
legit.
unfortunately, forgot that friend's name. Like, so sad.
I don't know.
Otherwise, we
But,
could report him and get him a.
I mean, honestly, I think that it's outside of the time frame where they can actually do anything about it. So,
Yeah.
getting older.
Crazy. So wait, so you weren't able to have beds there? Is that what you said?
Legally.
Yeah. So, it was a warehouse, and the rent made it really useful because with that many people being able to fit in that big of a building, it's
Mm-hmm.
a pretty cheap place to live. So, friend's crazy idea, and I don't know. We had some interesting people come along that was kind of fun.
That sounds really cool, and also a little bit scary. Were you ever worried about what the next person who came along might you know act like?
Not as much as I was more concerned about one of the friends that I knew who was a bit of a pyro.
Mm. Warehouses plus pyro. This doesn't sound good. Oh man.
Oh, yeah. That was interesting times, but I don't know. Tried to not worry about that too much because you got your neighbors. Gotta live with them.
Mhm. Yeah, that's very true.
Or you could move someplace that doesn't have neighbors, which is probably my ultimate goal.
Yeah.
I prefer the idea of living out kind of in the country, whereas I like to call it sub-rural, where it's not really out in the country, but it's not in a neighborhood either. It's sub-rural, like there's suburban, which isn't quite city. Um, so I want city nearby, and by city I mean not big city, but amenities and such within 10-15 minute drive of me. Um, but I want some space where if I wanted to walk around nude in my house with my windows open, nobody would see me.
Yeah, exactly.
Not that I do that, but I want the ability to do that if I so chose.
If you allegedly walked around your house naked.
Actually, I heard a funny joke once, which was how to tell the difference of where you're living. And that's to step out on your front porch naked. Now, if you're living in rural, nobody notices. If you're living in urban, nobody cares. And if you're living in suburban, the police are called on you.
I mean, I gotta say, sometimes, especially living here and trying to keep the bills down for the cooling, like it's an interesting alternative to that. So,
Yeah.
See, you could live out in the middle of nowhere and you be much happier. No neighbors, could have all the windows down with for cooling. Um
actually, I really wanted to do that. We almost moved to the mountains, but my husband didn't want to. So, dang it. Oh well.
well,
Yeah.
I'm going to stay in this house for a while yet because it's super cheap, but
Mhm.
it's right by a train track at the edge of kind of a sketchy neighborhood, and it has a lot of factory noise. But hey, my mortgage payments are less than $400 a month, so I can't
Hey,
complain too much.
That's
that's
wild.
nice.
Yeah. Oh, also the house is crooked. Oh, it's wonderfully crooked.
Uh,
Sometimes you gotta go catch the
see the
critters.
the unifying topic of all this is that we live where we can afford to live,
Mhm.
and whatever
That's
neighbors
the
we get
point.
there are the ones we get.
Actually, that's a really good point. Yeah, maybe the your socioeconomic status, your SEC, actually really makes a difference on how you interact with your neighbors.
I would agree with that. I mean, I might be completely wrong, but I feel like, if you have a lower socioeconomic status, that maybe you band together a little bit more to help each other out. I don't know, but
Or
Yeah.
or it gets really dangerous.
or the other way around, yeah, you have to live in the areas that are really crappy, because you can't afford a place that actually has well-maintained utilities or services or things like that. And so you might be in an area where you are scared to talk to your neighbors because you heard gunshots the night before,
Yeah.
and the night before that, and the night before that. So yeah, I would be interested to see if there was research or data on that.
Yeah.
And I feel like when you go up to the 1%er group, then you start getting to the point where people do avoid neighbors again entirely, where they have their gates and their long driveways, and unless you're invited over, they're not seeing you.
Maybe you'll see them at a gala.
Or is it gala?
Gala. Maybe that's what it is. Not rich enough to actually know.
I'm pretty sure I looked it up once and it was both. So,
Huh. That's what they want you to think.
oh, that way I see. It's actually Gila. And they just hide it from the peasants.
It's actually Gila monster, you know.
Yeah. There you go.
You know, I did read that that's what happened with tennis. It's tangent topic, but who cares if it's a tangent? Tennis has a very, very weird scoring system where 0 is love, and then it goes up. What is like 10, then 40, or then something? I don't remember the numbers exactly, but it's really weird. Anyone who plays tennis who doesn't say that it's weird is lying because they're just too used to it. And the reason I know it's for sure weird and not just my opinion is it's actually was done intentionally, because the rich people were getting tired. And now you can fact check me on this, but the rich people were getting tired of the peasants copying all their games and doing them, and they wanted something that was different that the peasants couldn't figure out. And so they intentionally made the scoring system confusing so that the peasants wouldn't understand, or the poorer people wouldn't understand what the actual rules of the game were.
Goodness, that's hilarious.
I mean, pretty sure that was a similar story with golf. I don't know that was meant to be confusing, but I think it was meant to be harder to access. So, I mean, totally believable.
Is that why golf is always kind of the rich person sport?
Well, it's expensive for one, that's for sure.
I mean, have you ever tried to look at how expensive just one golf club is? It's expensive.
Just go to local Goodwill. You have 2 dozen to pick from. $3. I'm sure they'll work great. I want to do that sometime.
Me and you can go putt-putt golfing.
Not putt-putt golfing. Go to a real golf course with one Goodwill club each, and pay whatever the exorbitant entrance fee is, but do it with just one club each from Goodwill, and knock the ball around a few times and turn it into a fun game. We'll see what happens. Probably spring for the extra cost to get the cart as well, instead of just walking it.
The just being around and see what happens is I feel like more literal than you think, because if you have dings, there's stuff in the in the thing you hit the ball with. I feel like it's gonna go in the random strange directions.
Yes.
Not that I feel like I would. I mean, it may make it more fun, especially for newbies, because I don't feel like I would do good at first anyways. So there you go.
Yeah, blame the club. Blame the club. It's all the club's fault. It's man, if I had a real set of clubs, not this thrift store club, I would be great. I'd totally have gotten a hole in 2. Oh, I guess that does have some weird names in golf, like birdie and eagle and whatnot. I hadn't thought about that, but
yeah.
It's probably something I will look up eventually, because random facts I like to Google.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, the nice thing about having an editable podcast is that dead air doesn't matter.
Yep.
Very nice. I listened to a lot of podcasts, and I feel like I didn't realize how truncated they were until we started doing our own. And then I was like, secrets of the trade. I see what you're doing there.
Well, and if you watch videos, like YouTubers and stuff, when they put up a picture or switch camera angles or whatnot, that's to hide the fact that they cut something out. Not every time, of course. Sometimes they do that for cinematic effects, but a lot of YouTubers will have 2 cameras so that they can switch angles so it can hide the cut.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, any tricks and trade, things, secrets of the trade that you can utilize. That's
I think personally, I will probably, when I record myself, I'll probably lean more on the methodology of the YouTubers who do what's called jump cuts, where you don't care. You will be in one position one moment, then a different position the next moment, and it doesn't matter. Shadiversity, that's one that I watched where he does that. He doesn't care. He's like, yeah, it saves you tons of time. It's a lot easier. Just do jump cuts. I agree with that. Everyone knows it's edited anyways, or if they don't know, well, it doesn't make a difference.
I feel
Yeah.
like that would be more your style, anyways.
Yeah. I prefer being more upfront, honest, organic, wherever possible. Which is part of why I prefer discussions over monologue. So I still intend to do some monologue, probably, depending if we have topics that we want to cover that are like, if topics I want to cover, if people hinting at perhaps you guys want to discuss them, then sure, I'll discuss them. But you might get an earful because I have a lot to say.
That's fun. I feel like that's the interesting part, is when you get to ask all the questions and you don't have to do a whole bunch of talking. Gay introvert.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Does make it easier.
You know what your first monologue could be?
What?
Your rap that you worked on.
Yeah, you know what? That thing is probably never seeing the light of day. I haven't decided to delete it yet, but I'm very close to that.
Oh man.
I'm sorry, some things just aren't meant to be, and this boy rapping, ain't no way that's meant to be. Like, I didn't even like rap until a few months ago, and my brothers playing it around me enough finally made me think, oh, I actually kind of enjoy this. And then playing around with one of them, just joking around, doing stuff about rap, and recording ourselves, just not for anything to keep, but just to mess around. Gave me the idea of like, I could try doing this. No, I can't. No, I can't. I shouldn't. I can. I can try. I shouldn't try. That's the key. Oh, I will stay in my little non-rapping bubble. I'll enjoy some rap though. But
Yeah.
See, I think the closest I'll ever get to that is wrapping myself in bubble tape.
you could make a rap about rapping in bubble tape.
There you go.
And then when you have a music video, you can be wrapped up in bubble tape while you're rapping.
I kind of think that Weird Al did that.
Oh, he did do that on the I Perform This Way.
Yeah. Wrapped up in bubble wrap.
Yeah, I think he was pretty much making fun of Lady Gaga at that point.
Like that.
It's
Yeah.
awesome. He's awesome.
Anyways, I feel like we kind of got to the end of our topic of what we wanted to say on it, but
I feel
Maybe.
like we could talk about a ton of stories and stuff like that. I have a lot of neighbor stories. So
Yeah.
well, if you want to tell a neighbor story, just outright say it, because
which one do you want? The one with the
oh,
gun?
I want the one that is
Oh.
Rebecca
or the what about the story where you actually no, that wasn't you. It was my wife. Pooped in the bathroom downstairs and was banned from the bathroom by your roommate.
She was a very interesting person. Did I
Mm.
ever tell you that she I was downstairs and I heard her talking to her friends, and she was like, yeah, Cassie is so gross. She touches her feet with her bare hands. It's so gross. And yet,
Wait.
at the same time, she wouldn't throw away her Kleenexes. So,
Touching your feet with your hands is bad?
apparently,
Oh,
she
okay.
had like OCD and stuff, but like, yeah, living with her was very interesting. We've also had interesting things like we were young and we had in the front it was this really cool cul-de-sac where I got to meet like one of my neighbors was really old and he was really fun and he brought me in to go see his balancing toys that were steel and that was fun. But behind us there were all these drag racers. And so we would just go and climb up into our tree and just watch the drag racers at night, and it was pretty fun. But
Nice.
but we also had one time somebody threw a gun into our yard, and my sister picked it up and pointed it at my brother.
Oof.
How old was she?
She was probably like 6. We were really young, and my brother backed up into the house and was like, "Mom, like get over here!" And then, so she got the gun for my sister, and like I don't think my sister could have pulled the trigger, and even if she could, I don't think it was loaded. Luckily, but
Luckily, a gun falls from the sky into your
Mhm.
yard. It's like, oh, well, at least it's not loaded.
Yeah.
I mean, there's reasons why. I absolutely loved that house so much, and there's reasons why we moved away from it, which is very sad. But my then we called the police, and they came over and like investigated it. My dad really wanted to keep it, but they.
I mean, guns are worth a fair bit of money.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
like, "This is a cool gun." So he wanted to keep it, but the police, of course, took it for investigation.
Oh,
But
wow. I just realized someone might have been trying to discard that from a crime or something.
Mhm.
Yeah, possibly.
So that could have been really bad if we had kept it.
But if you had kept it, you would have had a free gun. I
I
mean,
know.
being accused of a crime that you might have been caught on later, free gun. Hmm.
Like the price of being in the prison is free. So
Well,
there you go.
and you know what? If the police ever found out about it and they thought it was you who owned it in the or had done the crime, you could just tell them, "No, it just appeared in my backyard." They'll believe you.
Yeah, no, maybe you're dealing with different police than I am, but I don't think so.
Ooh, I just remembered a neighbor story. I was living in apartments, and we started hearing this person like moaning, and we're like, "Oh no, are they okay? They sound like they're hurt." Um, yeah, you see where this is going. So we're like, "Oh, should we go check on them?" And then we heard a slight change in how the moaning was working. We're like, "Oh, no, they're fine. They're doing just fine. Maybe should close their window, but they're good."
Maybe they're doing better than fine.
Yeah.
So our neighbor underneath us, was like, "Hey, you guys are really loud. Can you stop?" And we didn't really know what they were talking about, but like the next semester, we ended up getting a new bed frame. So we were giving it away, our old one away. Well, our upstairs neighbor took it directly upstairs from us, and so then it was
Oh.
suddenly very, very, very clear what was happening, and that bed was
Oh.
freaking like very made a lot of noises. So in some ways it was their own fault, but oh boy.
Well, you know what? If you tighten the screws on those, they typically creak less. So just
Yeah.
so you know, screw it before you screw it.
Or generously lend your neighbors your tools and never see them again.
There you go. Oh boy.
Oh, kind of tangentially related. Air conditioning really a must in a home. I
Yeah.
never want to go back to the times where I lived without air conditioning. That was livable, yes, not pleasant.
You mean like Whitemount? Or
Yeah, where it had like no
uh,
air
Didn't you have
conditioning.
like window air conditioners or?
I
I mean,
didn't.
luckily we were on the first. I mean, me and like we were on the first floor, so I could have an air conditioner. But you never really understand how like bad it is to not have air conditioning until you like don't.
Yeah, I didn't have air conditioning in this home for a little while, but luckily lived by my mom, so she bought us a window unit, and we put that in our bedroom, and we just stayed in the bedroom until the air conditioner was fixed.
You're like, I'm not leaving. That's awesome. Tyler, I feel like, do you have any more interesting stories?
I think right now, I've kind of got a similar dynamic as I did at the apartment complex. So I mean, there's the one neighbor I was talking about that I knew really well, and I talked to her a lot whenever I took Chip out, my dog, and she would actually like often like cook us food and stuff and just give us some of what she made anyway. So that was, really neat friendship,
That's
and
awesome. Free
hopefully
food.
keep that friendship going. So yeah, exactly. Free food. So I mean, so that was a good thing. Um, I think with like my neighbors in my hallway though, like oh, the one across the hallway from me, she was really nice, but like to this day, I still don't remember her name. It's just a casual enough relationship where it's like we say hi and stuff and see how each other are doing. But and then my upstairs neighbor, um, we actually had one of those. My upstairs neighbor, those little dogs that look like a miniature Chewbacca. What are those?
Oh, Pomeranians?
The Pomeranian? Yeah, I think it was a
Oh wait,
Pomeranian.
no, you might be thinking
Or is it
Yorkies.
Yorkie?
Maybe.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was Yorkie. I had a Yorkie. That was the yippiest dog ever. And it would like kind of stir Chip up sometimes. He'd go jumping up for the window to see what that Yorkie was barking at. And whenever they went down the hallway, Chip would just explode at that Yorkie. And so that was really kind of irritating and stuff. But because I knew that Chip made a lot of noise too and stuff, so it's kind of like, well, I'm not gonna make any complaints. It's kind of a mutual understanding that hey, if you don't complain about me, I won't complain about you. So I think it kind of worked out. It was a little bit annoying, but I kind of had to just I don't know, kind of just work with it. So anyway, she actually that upstairs neighbor moved out. I was like, this is fantastic. Chip is like chill now. We don't have to worry about that. Like 2 months later, we got some new neighbors, and they had a Yorkie that looked exactly the same. And Chip saw that Yorkie, and it was just back to square one. So, anyways, but I think now that I've moved into this new place, um, it's kind of funny because our neighbors on one side of our yard, we're on a corner house, so I've got neighbors on one side of my yard and then the other, and then there's some across the road. So one on one side of the yard, we're really friendly. We had a kind of little introduction and chatted with him for like 15 minutes or something. He offered to let us use a ladder or whatever if we needed one. Um, and just today, I finally actually met my other neighbor on the side of my yard, and he was friendly and stuff, but it was a really short and abrupt conversation. It's like, okay, I guess we're just gonna know each other exist, and that's fine. So,
I'm kind of okay with that.
yeah.
Yeah, I was
No,
gonna
that's
say sounds
fine. It
very
works.
opposite of John's neighbor.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
I've got my other neighbors where it's kind of like that. One I've never had a conversation with at all, and the other I have said hi to twice. Um,
Yeah.
and the thing is, this is something I didn't think to mention earlier, is I like being able to choose when I am being social. Um, if I don't feel in the mood for talking with someone, I want that to be my choice. With neighbors, I don't feel like that's always the case. Is they're there,
Yeah.
whether you are ready for them or not.
Yeah. I think it's interesting though too, and like, oh, what were you talking about? Well, your one neighbor that you really don't speak to. You've been there for multiple of years and stuff. It's like
Yeah,
after I don't know if mine. Like after living there for 3 years, I still don't remember her name. It's kind of funny that you can live next to somebody for such a long period of time and
yeah.
you acknowledge each other exist, but unless it's the end of the world, we'll probably never get to know them too much.
I feel like I've had some good like experiences with neighbors too. And like in our last house, there was somebody down the road that had hit her garage open. So it felt really nice for me to be able to, go and try that neighbor's door and not get it answered, and then go up to my next door neighbor's house and be like, "Hey, do you know who this person is? Like, can we go close your door or something?" And she came with me and knew the person, and so that was nice. But so it's
Yeah,
nice to have like those good interactions with neighbors too.
it is good. I don't know. I think um, one of the things that was actually kind of helpful for me when I was living in the apartments was I gave my phone number to two different neighbors and said, "Hey, if you ever hear my dog sounding distressed or something, and I'm not home, can you give me a call?"
Mhm.
Because I had to go into work and stuff, and so he's at home alone for a while. So,
Yeah,
and I know that so, sometimes in those apartments you've got dog owners that you can hear their dog all day long. It's kind of like I don't want that to be the situation. So,
right.
yeah, it can be helpful to have somebody that can keep an eye on things, especially if you're out and about.
Maybe it's also just a added sense of security of knowing that somebody's, if your dog starts barking a lot, maybe they'll contact you, and at that point, you kind of know that something's wrong, so you head home.
Yeah,
With my brother, he had a place that he moved out of but hadn't been able to sell yet, and it was a neighbor of his who caught the fact that there were people who started freeloading in his house.
oh jeez.
That was interesting, cleaning up that place after there was the mess left behind, and everything from drug paraphernalia to
Oh no.
finding like a love letter written from one of them to the other.
Oh, that's intriguing.
Yeah, and it was essentially saying like, I'm scared every time you leave this place because I'm afraid the police are going to pick you up. And it was a really interesting moment for me because I'm like, these people are people who have
People.
broken into someone else's house, are living there for free. They're the people who are doing drugs and stealing basically, and they're the type of people that are stereotypically the scum of the earth, and yet you read that and it's like, these are real people.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they're they're humans, and they have difficulties and fears and concerns, and they have a place too.
Yeah.
yeah,
And it kind of stinks that sometimes people are left to a house with the water and the utilities all turned off, is their best option for living.
yeah.
That's a really cool like sneak preview you got into their lives of of that. I feel like anytime that you can
Yeah.
be able to, get that, just realize that people aren't others and people are us, and that.
I felt a little bit like invasive reading that. Um
Mhm.
it's like, oh, this is someone's personal thing. But it was left there in my brother's house and I was cleaning up the house and I don't know, I'm glad I read it. I kind of wish I could have returned it to the person. But I didn't know who they were. So yeah.
Well, I mean, let's be honest too. I mean, it sounds like we're all doing relatively fine right now.
Yeah.
But at one point in our lives, it probably wouldn't have taken much to get us into that position. And you guys lived in an apartment with no air conditioning and apparently poop flooding down the floors. And I lived in a warehouse with 10 people and a pyro. So, like, um, I mean, so much
Yeah.
of it has been, things that line up well, and that's not always the case for everybody, and especially with with debt. You might get into a place where you've got payday loans that you can never pay
Mhm.
off,
Mhm.
and that is an extremely common situation for people.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it might just resort to, hey, here's a place that looks abandoned. We're gonna come and stay here, and
No one else is using it. Why can't I?
and maybe drugs brought you there, or maybe drugs are the reason that you managed to survive in your situation, because that's the only way you can cope with it. So,
Mhm.
I mean, or at least it's the only way you
Yeah.
think that you can cope with it anyway.
At least an escape from reality for a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I feel like anytime that you can see stuff like that and to realize that people aren't others, people are us. I feel like there's that sense of humanity that people, I think we lose that often as there are times
yeah,
when we lose that for people, and I think that it's just a reminder of that's us, not an other. It's a really good reminder.
yeah. It could happen to anyone.
Not anyone. Because some people have golden parachutes.
That is true.
I definitely want to start posting some things on this channel about universal basic income because I think that's a really important idea that if people actually looked at it, they might see that it's the way to go forward.
Well, maybe this ties that topic with their current topic, but I have to say, my my at least political philosophy comes down to the concept of tribalism, which is that humanity, the very first thing that really kind of sets humans apart from apes, other animals, is that we start to form tribes, and even apes have tribes,
Mhm.
but humanity creates. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, but from animals in general, humanity creates social structures that rewards innovation over physical power.
I feel like that is actually a very, or at least a relatively new aspect of humanity, though. Or at least a rare. But I'll say that because there have been people for at least thousands of years. I don't know farther back than that, but for thousands of years, there have been people who have been rewarded for their intellect and their innovation. But I feel like the majority of society, up until the last couple decades, I think with the advent of the internet and such, physical prowess has been the predominant distinction between people.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I think that continues to be a back and forth, depending on like your innovation. Obviously, in the
Yep.
internet era has been incredibly rewarding towards innovation. But I mean, World War II was rewarding towards those wars in general are rewarding towards the stronger of the group. And I don't know. In general, though, when you go back to tribalism, at least it gives room for innovators to exist and not be overrun by the more dominant. And so you've got the survival of the fittest. Fittest doesn't always have to mean physical, and instead it can mean innovative.
Well, survival of the fittest can mean the most fit group.
Yeah.
The group that is most capable of surviving rather than the individual.
Yeah. So I guess what I want to try and make the point of is that um, that created its own form of evolution to make humanity what it is.
Mhm.
And so tribalism has certain benefits to those people too, which is that as you're young, you receive an education from your elders. As you grow older, you were given some sort of task to do as part of the community, and there was food that was made available and shelter that was made available. And so, really humanity had aspects of socialism already in there. And so I think when it comes to neighbors or universal basic income, like it really comes down to allowing people to be good at something and know that others have their back at something that maybe they're not as good with.
I would say I get what you're meaning when you say tribalism. I think that word has a different connotation typically than like the way you're using it. I feel like is probably an appropriate use of the term, but I feel like the connotation is typically referring to the tribes that war against each other and how my tribe versus your tribe kind of othering. But it definitely sounds like you're talking about no, actually having a tribe, having a group of people who support you. Whatever, if you fall on hard times, you have a tribe. Um, and I think you're right. That is extremely important.
Yeah. And just the fact that it's what drove humanity towards greater intelligence. Because otherwise, if you're a caveman that lives on your own, the bigger caveman wins. If you're a caveman that lives with 30 people, well, the bigger caveman doesn't win. So, yeah, there is definitely,
Unless he's joined by other bigger
yeah, so,
cavemen that outbeat your tribe.
Well, and then you can have the one weak but smart caveman who teaches big cavemen how to wield spears, and now they can beat 60 cavemen.
yeah. So, I mean, there's definitely a negative connotation to it, but I think a historical aspect to it that shows that, being able to be part of a community that cares for each other, and even if that means that I know you exist, but I'm gonna respect your property and and call the cops if I see somebody robbing your house or something. It's like I don't know. Being part of a community at its core is tribalism. That's kind of where it's rooted from, and so that's where like I don't know. When you say universal basic income, I'm like, yeah, let's head back to our roots a little bit and take care of each other.
I think there's a whole discussion available for that because I've done a lot of thinking on social evolution, honestly,
Yeah,
and how that affects us and how it keeps evolving and changing. But I'm thinking that for today, I'm gonna start ending this because it's getting almost to my cutoff for the night. Anyways, any last minute thoughts as we're closing this up?
I got nothing.
I think it's interesting how I feel like
You feel like what?
this.
Merlin has joined the chat.
This is.
I was trying to do Yoda, but yeah. Shows you how good I am at Yoda voice.
Your feelings, what are?
No, he actually says, "You feel like what?" in Star Wars.
Gotcha.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, there you go. But in some ways, I feel like we completely, started out with one topic and switched to another. But at the same time, I think it's fun to see where this topic went. I enjoy having these discussions as discussions a lot more than just we're gonna go talk about A and then B and then C and then D because I feel like there's a lot of authentic conversation that happens.
Yeah.
When it just flows. So
Well,
that's
and
fun.
I think the idea of, I mean, having a topic to kind of start things off and to build off of, I think makes a lot of sense. But I like the idea, if you two like the idea, of let's do this again.
Sure.
Yeah.
And we can take turns picking hey, here's kind of a central theme, but then we can tangent as we will, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think?
Yeah.
I think that'd be awesome.
Sounds good.
All right, well, let's do this again. Signing myself up for a world of audio editing pain. Doom and gloom.
But you're also signing yourself up for a lot of discussions around conversations.
I know. I love conversations.
That's like your thing.
Well, and you know what? I could do this. I could not edit. That's an option as well. I could, or minimally edit.
true.
Listen to it once, cut out the stuff that I don't want these hobos listening. No offense to hobos. I don't want them to hear. They're not good enough to hear our private conversations that we recorded publicly, but
Oh my
aren't posting
God.
publicly because we decided not to be public about them. They don't deserve that stuff. They only deserve what I want them to see and hear. So, yeah, I'll probably not cut much.
I mean, I feel like there's different kinds of listeners. There's the people who really like the polished stuff and that are
Yeah,
highly
they're not gonna
polished and
watch me.
has kind of a tangential.
They're not gonna watch
Yeah,
me.
and they might, but they probably will listen.
I'm not gonna be polished.
I think it's somewhere in between, maybe.
So I feel like you just attract, the people who are willing to listen to you, and as long as you're, I don't know, I feel like that's kind of something that happens to YouTubers or things like that, where they have like this one hit where they're like, okay, we got to do more of that kind of thing, even though that's not really their jam. And so, I feel like doing it according to what you want to do and letting the people follow as they will is how I would do
If my
it.
experience working in elementary school tells me anything about who's going to follow me and who's going to listen to me and stay close to me, the ADHD kids, the behavioral kids, the people who are a little bit on the fun side of things. Those kids were always the most fun. I probably hung out with them too, rather than just the other way around. But yeah, anyways, just to say to our audience of so far practically no one, hey, thanks. You listened to this whole thing? Really? You got to this point and you still are listening? You're insane. What's wrong with you? I mean,
Go get a life.
but insane people need things too. So we'll plan on making some more for you, just to give you something to help your insane life.
And thanks for being insane with us.
Well, it is 11 o'clock now my time, so I'm going to say let's at least close off the recording for now. And yeah, next time I'm looking forward to, honestly.
Okay.
This is fun.
Are you gonna say your epic goodbyes or not? You just gonna keep it like
Goodbye, my people who listen to me. Goodbye, my people, and do not pee.
For how
I don't know.
long?
Okay, bye.